So, what if you could see the future? And no, I'm not talking about with a crystal ball. I'm talking about with data. See, every set of numbers, it tells a story, right? A history of what's already happened. But hidden inside that story are clues about what's coming next. Today, we're going to go on a little data detective mission, and we're going to solve the mystery of the future. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on the mystery itself, the forecasting challenge. Then, we'll start gathering clues by uncovering data patterns. After that, it's time to crack the case and predict the future. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the analyst's takeaway. You know, every organization out there, whether it's a tiny coffee shop or a massive global company, they all face the exact same problem: uncertainty. What are sales going to look like next quarter? How much inventory should we order? The answers are all hidden in this mystery, deep inside the numbers. Which brings us right to the heart of our investigation, the big question: how can we actually use the record of the past to make a solid, reliable prediction about what's going to happen in the future? So, our case file for this whole thing is a pretty common set of monthly data. Just imagine this is something like monthly sales figures or maybe website traffic, could be customer demand. It looks really simple on the surface, but this is our raw material, and trust me, it is full of clues just waiting for us to find them. Okay, now this is where the real fun starts. We are officially moving into the investigative phase. So let's put on our detective hats and use a bunch of really powerful visual tools to make our data talk and spill its secrets. Every good detective needs a toolkit, right? Well, ours is designed to look at the evidence from every possible angle. We're going to start with a bird's eye view using a time plot. Then we'll zoom in on those yearly patterns with the seasonal and subseries plots. And finally, we'll check for any short-term memory with something called a lag plot. Let's get to it. First up, the time plot. Think of this as our 10,000-foot view. We're just plotting our data points in order, chronologically, to get a feel for the big picture, the overall story that's unfolding over time. And boom, just like that, we have our first major clue. I mean, look at that line on the side. This isn't just random noise. There is a clear, consistent upward trend. So whatever this data represents, it's growing. That is a huge piece of the puzzle right there. Okay, so we know the direction is generally up, but is there a rhythm? Is there a pulse to this data? To figure that out, let's move on to our next tool, the seasonal plot, and see if we can find any patterns that repeat themselves year after year. So what we've done here is we've taken each year of our data and kind of laid them on top of each other, almost like transparent sheets. And look what happens. A super clear pattern just pops out. You see how the lines all follow that same wave-like shape? We've got these predictable peaks and valleys that just keep repeating every single year. This is our data's annual rhythm. A trend and a seasonal rhythm, that's a really strong start. But how reliable is this seasonal pattern really? To find out, we need to zoom in even closer. And for that, we're bringing in our third tool, the seasonal subseries plot. This plot breaks our data down even more. Each of those boxes you see represents a single month. So you've got all the Januaries together, all the Februaries, and so on. Notice the blue line inside each box? It's pretty flat, which tells us that even though there are ups and downs during the year, each individual month behaves very, very consistently from one year to the next. Our seasonal pattern is rock solid. We have one last piece of evidence to collect. We've got to know if this month's data gives us any clues at all about next month's data. In other words, does our data have a memory? Our final tool, the lag plot, is going to tell us exactly that. So here's how this works. We're basically plotting this month's value against last month's value. That tight cluster of dots you see forming a line, that tells us there is a super strong relationship. If last month was high, this month is probably going to be high. If last month was low, this month is probably going to be low. This confirms it. Our data has a strong memory from one month to the next. Okay, let's pull all our clues together. We've basically built a complete profile of our data. We know it has a consistent upward trend, we know it has a predictable yearly rhythm, and super stable monthly patterns. And on top of all that, we've seen it has a strong memory, what analysts call autocorrelation. We now understand this data's personality inside and out. So, we've done all the detective work, we've gathered all the clues, and now for the moment we've all been waiting for. The big reveal. Let's use everything we just learned to finally predict the future. With such a strong, consistent trend, we don't actually need some overly complicated tool. We can use a really simple but powerful technique called the drift method. It's perfect for this case because it does one thing and it does it really well. It just calculates the average change over our entire history, that's the drift, and it projects that same path into the future. And there it is, the forecast. That purple line that you see extending out from our past data, that is our prediction. And it's built on all the evidence we just uncovered. This is where all that detective work really pays off. This is the past, literally informing the future. But, how good is it? A great detective always checks their work. So here we can actually compare some of our forecasted values against the actual values that really happened. Look how close they are. This gives us incredible confidence that our methodical approach has led us to a really, really reliable conclusion. Okay, so we created a great forecast, but what's the real takeaway here? Beyond all the charts and the numbers, why does this entire process matter so much in the real world? See, this process did way more than just create a chart. We basically decoded our data's DNA. We built a forecast that we can actually trust, and most importantly, we created a tool for making much smarter decisions, and we did it all just by using a few simple visuals to get the data to tell its own story. And that right there, that is the most important takeaway. By following a structured, visual approach like this, we move way beyond just guessing. We can systematically turn the uncertainty of the future into a real strategic advantage. And that just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We took a really simple set of monthly data, and we uncovered this hidden story that's shaping its future. So, what about your world? In your business, in your projects, maybe even in your life? What hidden patterns could be shaping your future?